talking from two people who've put the whole picture together. People who are real pioneers, and they're invested in content marketing and they're driving success with it. First is Jennifer Lashua of Intel. So I think we can all remember the Intel Inside campaign. You know, from a few decades ago, was an incredibly powerful way that Intel, which was a brand inside other pieces of equipment, was getting their brand out directly to consumers. And now this modern era that we're in, when Intel chose to similarly connect with consumers about the Intel brand, they decided to do it with content delivered through social channels and have had great success with it. So here to tell that story is Jennifer. Let's give her a nice welcome.
So thanks, guys. I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Jen Lashua, and I'm with Intel's Social Media Center of Excellence. So I'll kind of just start off by giving you a little bit of information about kind of who we are and what we do. So I put up on the screen just kind of a smattering of different examples of the types of content and the channels that we're communicating with our customers on. So kind of the way that we're organized, just to kind of give you a sense of the organization, is I sit on the Social Media Center of Excellence, which is within our integrated media team, which is within our corporate marketing group. So we're located, there's about 15 of us, and we're located in the US, primarily in California. We also have a number of geography teams that are around the world. So we have social media leads in each one of the key geographies, and then we have social media experts and community managers within about 55 countries. In addition to that, and probably one of our most really important assets and resources, is we have about 400 of what we call social media practitioners. And these are people who, it may or may not be really part of their job title, but they're practicing social media on behalf of Intel and helping us to extend our messages to a really broad audience. So they may be people with 10 followers, they may be people with 10,000 followers, but these people globally can help us to really reach out and reach people that we as a corporation with our @Intel handle or our Intel Facebook page just really couldn't. We're primarily focused around, my team is primarily focused around reaching consumers. So we do have teams that also reach our IT audiences and some other business audiences through social, and there's definitely a very robust presence there. Probably a lot of what I'm going to talk about has a little bit more of a consumer flavor to it, so you kind of might see that coming through in some of the material. So just in terms of kind of who we are, in case you want to connect with us, because I really hope that you will. So you can find us on Facebook, which is our largest social presence. So we have one global page, and we have about 54 country pages. We have a primary Twitter handle @Intel, and we have about 30 supporting Twitter handles that are run by our different geography teams in different languages, and sometimes for different very specific niche topic areas. We have a global use, so you kind of see a theme here. So we generally have one global and then supporting local geography. So we have a global YouTube channel. We are on Google+. It is not dead. There are still lots of people out there, and we're regularly getting a lot of interaction there, so it's well worth our time to continue investing on that platform. We're on Pinterest, Tumblr, and Instagram. And then we also are locally on a lot of the networks like RenRen, Weibo, in countries that are not on some of the global networks. So that's where you can find us. One of the first things that that I really kind of encourage us to think about before we even get active on a social channel, so before we even started getting active on Pinterest, for example, or when the team in China wanted to go and open a couple of new Weibo handles, or really kind of at the very, very first stage, is to kind of think about some of these questions. So we're really trying to think about who the person is that we are speaking with. So we use a lot of data to do audience segmentation. So we know pretty well who the right target person is for us to be speaking with. We have that pretty much narrowed down into their interests, their likes, where they tend to hang out on social networks, what age they are, all sorts of things. We also know what their passions and their problems are. So for me, the type of person that I talk to and my team talks to on a really regular basis, their passions are technology, mobile, and being connected. That's what they love. That's what they think about. Maybe they don't think about it, but it's part of their DNA. It's part about who they are. Some of their kind of interest areas are they want to be entertained, They want information in a fun and lightweight way, and they want to have some engagement. They want a place where they can really express who they are and their love of technology with other people who also love technology. So we're trying to create a place where they can do that with us. When do they want to engage? All the time. I mean, just constantly, all the time. We have people that are, no matter what time of day, no matter when we send a tweet or a Facebook post, there's always people around the world that are engaging with us. We also do use a lot of data and analytics to understand exactly when, if we're trying to reach a particular audience, when's the best time to reach them. But this audience is always on, and they're always connected, and they're always on social. So we are too. And then where's the gap in terms of what do they want? Where do they want to engage? And where can we kind of fill that gap? So, what we feel is the gap that we can really fill is this need for a steady stream of lightweight, kind of informational, but yet entertaining type of content that's based around technology. So that's really what we're out there providing in our content. And then the last piece, which I think is really important, and again, something that I really try to get our teams to think about before they're creating content, is why do they care what we have to say? We might think this is the most important thing in the world. Why does the audience, why do those 27 million fans and followers that we have out there, why do they even care? So really thinking about that. Luckily, we're, through some of our research, we find ourselves in a pretty good spot in terms of the majority of people that we are interested in connecting with, so kind of the broad consumer base, thinks that Intel is kind of mysterious. They're interested in us. They don't really know exactly what it is that we do, but yet they kind of have this sense of some sort of trust that we do good things and that we have something to do with technology that's good. So that's good for us because it really opens the door to let us be able to talk about a number of different things that are related to technology. So the next thing that we really do is look at data, and not surprisingly, probably Intel, we love data. So we have lots and lots of data. Sometimes the more challenging thing is really, limiting ourselves so that we're looking at the most important pieces of data and knowing what to make of it all. We have many different reports and tools that we use. So some that are, kind of off the shelf that maybe you guys are using too. So, we use Sysmos, we use all different sorts of tools for tracking Twitter and engaging with folks on those networks. We also, when there's not a tool out there or when the tool is not working for us, we create our own. So we've created a social media cockpit, which is kind of the screenshot in the upper left, which really pulls together everything that we're interested in about social networks from around the world that's meaningful to us, and it pulls it all into one place so that we have a constant, always-on dashboard that we can look at. And this has been a really valuable tool for us. Our team produces regular kind of reports and updates to upper management because, a lot of the challenge that we face with content marketing as content marketers and also within social media is that it's not really widely understood. So people don't know the value of a Facebook post or a tweet or, when I want to work with an agency to get some support for them to help me to produce a really great YouTube video, it's like, why are we investing money in producing YouTube videos? Well, so the reporting also helps kind of upwardly to inform our management why it's important to invest in content and in social. One of the big challenges that we have as a big global brand with lots of different products and lots of different technologies is that we do have a lot that we could potentially talk about. So these are a very few number of the products and the campaigns that could potentially and do reach the consumer audience. We're talking about thin and light ultrabooks. We're talking about all-in-one PCs. We're talking about the newest core processor. We also are talking about some of our initiatives in education and in helping girls and women and some of our corporate social responsibility things. We're in tablets now, we're in smartphones. So we have a lot of things to talk about, and it often is really just thinking about what are the priorities. So we've gone through, and each year we go through a pretty rigorous prioritization process where we really think about, these are the 101 different things that we could talk about. Now, what are we going to talk about, and with what weighting and what percentage and what frequency, so that we are all connected and aligned around how often we're going to communicate, so that if you're following our Twitter feed, you're not feeling like you have no idea what's going on from one day to the next. So there's some kind of sense of storytelling and explanation and cohesiveness throughout. Given that we do have a limited amount of space to communicate, and there's lots of folks that internally that manage a campaign or a product and have a priority, one of the things that I also try to really get the teams to do is, before you produce a piece of content, before you even think about producing a campaign, is to really think to yourself, what is it that you want the audience to think, feel, and do? So people come to us all the time and they say, oh, can we post this video, or can we post this paper, or can we post this, can we tweet this out? And I ask them why, and they say, well, because we need visibility. What does that mean? What is visibility? What is exposure? Why? What are you trying to get the audience? What do you want them to think after they've seen this? How do you want them to feel about Intel and about your program or about your product? And then more importantly, what do you want them to go and do now that they've seen it? This has really helped, I think, to inform some of the content marketing and the content creation that we've done on the team. And it's something that is important with literally every single post, every tweet, every agency brief that we write. So every single piece of content, it's really something that we're thinking about. Something else that we recently finished, actually, that I'm really, really excited about is another member of our team has taken on the initiative and recently completed a social content strategy. And this is, I think, just truly exciting, because when I think about the number of different channels, I mean, you think about Facebook alone, we cover 55 countries on Facebook. So we have probably a smaller number than that, because some community managers are covering more than one country. But, let's say there's just 30 Facebook page managers in all sorts of different countries. If they're all talking in their own way, in their own manner to the audience, there's no cohesion across what people are seeing come from us. So the content strategy really defines what's the tone and the voice that we communicate with, how are we talking to people, what do we talk about, what things are inbounds, what's out of bounds, what do we take a point of view on. And this has really already been a really helpful strategy document that we have found that really kind of helps to get everyone aligned. So putting it all into practice. So this is where I'll just, kind of literally explain to you guys what it is that, we do as a team in terms of how we create content and how our editorial process is and our programming works. So before I get into that, about a year ago, just to kind of give you a sense as to the progress that we've made in the course of a year, about a year ago, we had 2 people tweeting and doing Facebook for the global kind of center of excellence side of things. And there was no calendar. Everything was on email. There was no rhyme or reason as to when we posted something or why we posted something, or if someone went on vacation, things just didn't happen. There was no content repository. I mean, it was like the wild, wild west. It was kind of all over the place. So we kind of got together as a team and realized in order for us to grow and to scale, we have to put some processes in place. So this is kind of what we came up with. And it's not as scary as it looks. It's actually pretty simple, and it kind of works pretty well. We have everything is centralized right now into a Kapost content management system and calendar, which I love, because there's now one place where if I want to know what's going on, if anyone else on the team needs to know what's going on, it's all in one place. We have agencies that feed into this. They're pitching content to us on a regular basis. So these are the different kind of streams that all feed into our editorial calendar. We have our agency content feeding in. We have IQ. IQ is our social syndication and blogging platform. It's iq.intel.com if you want to check it out. We have IQ content that's being fed through with some of the freelancers that we're working with. We have our big campaign content that's kind of the extensions of the big campaign stuff that you'd see on TV or on billboards or in print or what have you. We source internally also, so there's always an event going on that Intel is at, a trade show or an event or an activity or a product launch or a press release or something we're doing with one of our partners. So we are definitely sourcing content from internal sources. And then one of the things I'm most excited about is we, in collaboration with Kapost, built an editorial request form. So any one of Intel's 100,000 employees can go into this form and say, I have a really great idea for something that I think would make a good tweet, or I'm working on a good program and don't you think you want to post it on Facebook? This used to all get dumped into one person's inbox, which was chaos. So now we have a great form. There's certain fields that they're forced to fill out, and it really, not only does it streamline things for us, but it really makes people think about, well, I don't know what I want the audience to think after they're reading this, or I don't know where I want to drive traffic to after somebody hears my great message. So not only does it kind of streamline, but it really makes people kind of stop and think. So in addition to helping us, it's also actually helping the company, because in a way, we're also teaching people about social by use of this tool. So I love it. It's working super well for us. And then from there, we publish. So we publish right now. We are doing our content publishing on Facebook and Twitter using Sprinkler. We are publishing to Tumblr directly through Kapost, and on the other platforms, we're just natively publishing directly. But there's a really clear process and way that things happen, and it's very much tracked. It's also very helpful for all of those country teams and our geography teams who, in some cases, you'll have one person, for example, covering all of Africa, and, they have, I don't know, like 15 Facebook pages to manage. It's a lot for one person. So by centralizing everything, I'm now providing a resource to them to be able to kind of come in and say, hey, here's a piece of global content. Maybe I need to translate it into French, or maybe I need to swap something out a little bit. But it's a really nice kind of centralized process that we use. And then our community management team are the ones that are in there that are posting, they're publishing, they're interacting, they're retweeting, they're engaging, and kind of doing all those great things that great community managers would do. And that's kind of, that's us, and that's what we do at a really high level in terms of our content and our social. We can do questions if there's time for questions.
Many people here are from big global brands like yours, and they're trying to manage this tension between having a consistent, globally managed content and social presence, but also working across all these different geographies. You gave the African example. Not from a tools perspective, but just from an organizational and strategic perspective. How do you guys manage that? Is it all centralized? Is it decentralized? Where's the authority? How do you manage that, that challenge that you have with having so many active geographies?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing that is most important is relationships. So we build great relationships with all of our geography leads. So we have one geography lead in, Europe, Latin America, Asia Pacific, China, et cetera. The relationships that we have with those people is super tight. Any one of them could wake me up in the middle of the night. I would get up and help them with anything issue that they were having on a social network. So that's really key. We do spend FaceTime together, but we also just meet on a really regular basis. In terms of kind of how's the hierarchy work, we, I suppose, are lucky in the way that we are positioned internally as being a global center of excellence, and the geography teams, kind of the way that they're sort of matrixed in from a reporting perspective, we get their mind share and their collaboration. It's organizational, but it's also something that we do. So we proactively reach out to them, and each one of us kind of has a geography that we work with. So mine is China. So I work with the China team and say, so a year ago I said, I don't know anything about social media in China, so I'm going to come over and can you teach me? So I spent 2 days learning from the team about, the social networks, the challenges that they have, and listening to them, really. And, when they said, this content stuff that you guys are doing, it doesn't work in China. So when you don't give me any budget to create my own content and you just tell me repurpose the stuff that you're producing globally, that doesn't work. So we said, okay, I understand. we'll stop doing that. We'll carve out a section of budget so that you guys can create the content that you need that's going to resonate with your audience. And China's a really specific example because literally none, I don't think, of the content really actually kind of works when you kind of try and translate it. In other countries like Europe, they love the content we're producing. They just needed a way for us to be able to produce it in a method and a model that was in advance far enough, and also some things around kind of the file formats and whatnot. But we've gotten that all worked out now, and they're super happy too. So I think it's really about the relationships that we build with them, and also I think that our team is just, we're really good listeners and we're really good partners, and they feel like they can trust us and we're on their side, and kind of we have their back. So that relationship works well.
So I'm curious, you were describing towards the end of the presentation, you were talking about how you were setting up a process for all the people in the company that wanted to engage in social media, wanted some activity, and you had a form for them to fill out. It sounds a little bit like a bit of the big brother, in this case, big sister kind of management of the process. Have you put any education programs together to help people understand how social media works or what they're doing, and to what extent, because you've got a big group of people you're working with, to what extent have you had success with that, with them being more effective at helping you with that?
Yeah, definitely. So there's two different pieces, actually, and I might not have done a great job explaining, so I can kind of relook at that. So the form that I mentioned is when people in the company have an idea or a piece of content that they want to be posted on the Global Intel Facebook page or from the Global Intel handle. And so for that's kind of the piece where, it's an idea stream that, kind of comes into us. Sometimes people will say, hey, I was at a trade show last week. We did a really cool demo. Here's a picture. Can you post it? And yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Sometimes it's a little seed of an idea that we use to then actually go off and create some good content. But that's kind of one side of things. The other, which is around our base of about 400 social media practitioners, these are the folks who have said, I, from my @RunningGen Twitter handle, want to help to support Intel's marketing and social media initiatives by communicating what Intel has to say. And so for those people, really all we ask them to do is there's a really brief training that we ask them to take that's really kind of a CYA kind of a thing from a legal perspective. And we do ask them to register their Twitter handle so that we kind of have some sense of, who's on what handle, and if there's not a name that's easily associated with it, so that we can just kind of know who everybody is. And we do have a couple of additional trainings that we make available to people, but that's it. It's kind of at that point, it's the onus is on them, and it's their image that they're kind of putting out there. So if they want to positively kind of talk about the company, we're super excited. If they're not using all the hashtags correctly or whatever, we try to educate them. But I mean, in the end of the day, it's kind of on them to learn that for themselves. But we have a fair number of educational programs. We produce a regular newsletter that helps to kind of educate people. We also kind of have a system, and I use system in a really loose format because it's really just an email distribution. But it's an email distribution whereby someone who owns a marketing program can create an alert that goes to the email distribution. And there's a couple of key fields that need to be filled out. One of the fields is sample tweets. So if you're running let's see, we do some music partnerships, for example, with musicians. And so if you're the marketing person that's responsible for that music partnership and you want to get everybody in the company tweeting about this music program to get visibility for it, you fill out the form, you create a couple of sample tweets, you send it out, it goes to 400 people, and people will tweet about it. So that's a really good way and we, from a social media team perspective, we're totally hands-off. That system just kind of runs and it works, all by itself, which is great. There's no oversight from us. There's no, we don't need to really get involved. So that works well.